guest is Gene Perla, ladies and gentlemen. Very happy to have you here. And that was Stone Alliance, right? 1976. Toured all over the place. Steve Grossman on sax and Don Elias on drums.
Hmm.
Yeah. Pretty strong for three guys, you know.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun
I can imagine.
and a lot of work too.
Let's see, how long were you? 6 months in South America.
6 months, yeah,
Yeah, wow.
yeah.
I think I only saw Don Elias live once. I was kind of, I was totally mesmerized and thrilled.
Hmm.
Yeah, pretty, pretty creative guy, huh?
Oh, one of a kind. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that when your peers say, and in particular Giovanni Hidalgo and Alex Acuna, um, both of them said to me, Don is number one. You know, so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Alex isn't bad.
Bad boy. He's a bad boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that guy. I wish he was on the East Coast.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah. He's such a nice person too.
yeah,
You know, the whole package is great.
yeah.
Um, so, it's pretty interesting to talk to you because, well, for a lot of different reasons, but also just that you include in your kind of biography that you like business, or you have a business sense or entrepreneurial sense, and I do too. So that's why I was like, oh wow, a person who. Oh, let me move my mic over. This is probably better. Um, yeah, is like that. So I want to hear about that, but yeah, what years or year were you at Berklee?
62 to 64. Um, yeah,
Wow, now
at the
that's
at the school. Yeah.
yeah, that I was there 72 to 75. And
Mm-hmm.
even when I was there, they were just beginning to expand. They still had their old buildings. I don't
Hmm.
even know if did they have the building on Marlborough Street when you were there?
No, they only had the one on Newberry. That was it. One
Mm,
building. Yeah.
yeah, those buildings were great. It's just kind of made it feel like a family. But yeah, so 10 years earlier, yeah,
Hmm.
that that was and how old were you when you went there?
I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you probably already had been on your path for a little bit
No,
and
not at all. Not
oh,
at all.
really?
I got on my path um, probably just a few months before when I decided that I wanted to be a jazz piano player.
Oh,
And then I was looking around for a school, and I could only find, well, there was one in California. I think it was called Westlake. They had a recording studio as
okay.
well. But the
But
school,
you're from Boston too, right? Or the
no, no,
area?
no. I'm from a small town in northeastern New Jersey called Woodcliff Lake. It's about
Oh,
22 miles from Manhattan.
okay, okay, because you have like a little, maybe that's a New Jersey accent too, like kind of a Boston, Rhode Island kind of little.
No, I guess maybe I soak it up wherever I am.
Okay, so but you were in kind of the general area. Well, that's not really the general area. New Jersey and Boston are a little bit far, but
Mhm.
anyway, you found Berkeley, which was
Yeah, because as I said, Westlake was it
too
just
far.
didn't feel like it was strong enough for me. And the only other place that I found, in fact, at that time, I believe there were only really two jazz schools in the world, and North Texas State, and they focused on big bands, and I wanted a small group thing, so that's when I found Berkeley. I said, yeah, that's for me. So
Why did you want to be a jazz piano player?
because of Bill Evans. hearing him. Yeah.
Was there one moment that you went,
Absolutely.
oh,
Absolutely.
oh, what was it?
Well, I had been playing in a band, but it was just kind of fun for me out in Toledo, Ohio, where I was going to school, studying engineering and business stuff. And I was playing trombone in the band, a little bit of piano, because I took piano lessons, classical piano lessons from 5 to 15.
Oh,
So yeah, I can, get around the piano.
yeah.
But on Saturdays, the drummer and I, very often we'd go to the local record shop, and they had 3 or 4 listening booths in the back, and they didn't have shrink wrap on the albums, LPs. You could take the album and put it on a turntable and listen to it. If you liked it, you bought it. If not, you put it back in the rack. And
Yeah, right.
so this is 1959, and Kind of Blue comes out. So I'm hearing this piano. I said, wow, what a different sounding piano. And some months later, what's it called? Live, a Sunday at the Village Vanguard, I think it's called. It's a trio thing of Bill Evans, which was Scott LaFaro. Phew. And I put that record on, and the first tune was LaFaro's tune called Glorious Step. And the melody goes, dun, 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 and then in the left hand, he plays 3-note chords, and 2 notes are half step apart. And the sound of those 3 chords going down chromatically, I never heard anything like that. And it was like a lightning bolt went through me. And I said, man, this is what I want to do. Then I looked for a school, and that's what happened. Yeah.
That's great. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Who was the piano teacher in those days at Berklee?
Ray Santisi.
Ray Santisi.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Now this is really funny because I said, I studied classical piano, so I could look at the ink, right?
Yeah.
and make music by looking at the ink, but I didn't know anything at all about improvisation. Or, I listened to it and I was impressed, and I played a little piano, dabbled a little bit in high school, but I didn't really know anything. And the first lesson that I had with Ray, he's kind of crusty kind of a guy.
Definitely.
And he said, sit at the piano. And I said, okay. He said, play me a C6 chord. And I said, well, I think it's got a C, E, and a G in it, but after that, I don't know. So that was the extent of my, harmonic knowledge. Yeah.
He probably didn't even ask you to read anything classical.
No, he probably said, oh, forget this guy.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, that must have been a great time, though. Like Boston, just the general state of mind of people, and that time period, and politics and music, and it was pretty
Explosive.
alive, right? Yeah.
Well, the thing, and you were there, so you know this, but there are over 60 colleges and universities in that area. So you talk about a youth power of, it's tremendous, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Even now when I go back, I mean, of course it's changed so much, but still when I go back there, it's not too long that I'm not like brought back into feeling like I'm in college. It's like, yeah, I remember this. Oh, I remember this street.
Yeah.
It's a nice town.
Oh yeah, I think it's a great place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did I read that you were in one of the armed forces too?
No, I got called in induction because they had the draft at that time. So when I decided to quit school, they were right on me.
Oh.
All right, buddy, So,
Yeah.
But they classified me as 1Y, So
What is 1Y?
I think what that meant was if the enemy reached the American shores, then they'd call me up.
Oh.
Something like that. I don't know. But I kind of let them know I didn't want to, I didn't want to go. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Let's see. I'm just trying to kind of review. It's silly. I'm so much better in the moment than, than I am remembering bios and stuff.
Hmm.
But so would you say that you're actually, my friend did actually give me some of your all music credits,
Mm.
which is just, I mean, a lot of times they're slightly incorrect, but I'm thinking that maybe a lot of this is correct. Oh, now I do see Taziji Munoz on here. Is that an accurate thing?
Yeah. Hmm.
He's
Yeah.
he's quite the interesting person too.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Now, why do I know him? I know him through Bob Moses.
Hmm.
Um, yes, because so Bob is like, oh, that's your phone?
Well, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it looks like you were the engineer. Is that part of
Yeah,
your,
just give me a second. Let me close this door. One quick.
okay, sure. So I'm just going to tell you guys, Taziji Munoz, he's another person I'd love to interview. He's a very interesting guy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. I was just
Yeah,
kind of describing a little bit about Taziji, which is a little
yeah.
hard to do, but he's a he's amazing. He's a guitarist and a percussionist and composer. He's a spiritual guru to people.
Hmm.
His music on one record, it could go from the most beautiful, soft, sensitive ballad to the most far out kind of rock and jazz combination. And
Hmm.
yeah, he's really an
Hmm.
interesting person.
Hmm.
So you were the engineer for a recording of his?
Yeah, we did some of it, but I played with him as well.
Oh, you did?
Not a lot, but we did some stuff together.
Yeah.
Um, and well, I can, we're gonna, how about Sonny Greenwich?
Oh,
You
I
know
don't know
that
that
name?
name. No.
Oh, that is the guy. That
Oh.
is really the guy. Out of Montreal,
Oh.
and plays the guitar like a saxophonist, single line.
I have to look him up. How do you
Oh
spell his
man,
name?
Greenwich.
Greenwich. Okay.
Gren, Gren,
Sonny, just,
Greenwich.
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Is he still around?
Yeah, he's still around. I don't think he's playing though. Mark Miller, um, a writer, and
Yeah.
involved in jazz. You know that name, Mark Miller, out in Toronto. He did a book on him, a
Oh,
biography.
oh,
Yeah.
oh. I'm gonna look that. I'll write that down too. Mark
Yeah.
Miller. I
Uh-huh.
know a Mark Miller, but that's why I know the name.
Mm. Yeah, Sonny Greenwich. I played quite a bit with him, with Don Thompson, the
Yep.
pianist, bassist, vibraphonist, and one of the most phenomenal drummers of all time for me is Claude Ranger, Ranger.
Oh yeah, I know that
Yeah,
name.
yeah. That guy was phenomenal.
Yeah, Don Thompson. I saw Don Thompson too.
Hmm.
I saw him with, yeah, Jim Hall.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I saw him. I guess he was. So he's. So I haven't thought of him in years. He's the bass player or the drummer would
Bass
be
player.
Jim Hall. Okay, so the drummer. They had this. It was a drummer from Canada as well.
Terry Clark.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I saw them. This was in, I don't know, let's see, these 80s, early 80s, I guess. The drummer had a broken arm in a sling and was playing.
Hmm.
And actually, I wrote a song called Mr. Hall that night. I went home and I was writing in a closet at the time because, didn't have much space. And I wrote that song.
Wow. Wow.
Very inspiring.
Well, that's interesting because when I was with Elvin, he had broken his arm and he played the gig in the cast too. Yeah,
I mean, why not? The other
yeah, why not?
appendages are working.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it
you
made
have
them
a
all
lot
work.
of you have a lot of Elvin here. So was that like a long time? Was that kind of a chunk of a time period, or did you kind of come and go? or over the years?
Well, my interactions with him, they were the first time I met and played with him was I hadn't become a bass player yet. So I
Oh,
sat in on piano. I was already going to Berklee, and I came down from Boston looking for him, and I went to the old five spot and sat in one night very late, played one tune with him. And then after I switched to bass some years later, I had moved to New York. I sat in with him at another club, Pookie's Pub. A couple of different times I played, one song with him. And then I was playing a gig in Boston, and I was in the lounge, or the front, the old Newbury Street Berklee building, with a couple of friends, and a phone call came in from WGBH, and the girl shouted out. She said, "Elvin Jones needs a bass player right now." And what had happened was Jimmy Garrison went to New York and he missed the plane or something, and they were doing this live, I think, half-hour TV show. And so lucky there were no cops, and I got out there, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes before the thing went live, and I'm trying to adjust this. I had my electric bass, that's all I had, and adjusting the amplifier, and Joe is singing me this. Joe Farrell was a trio, right?
yeah.
Joe's
Oh,
saxophone.
God,
He's
yeah,
singing me.
yeah.
They were going to play this tune, play that, and I don't know what he's talking about. Next, and Elvin is like, he's pissed because
Yeah.
Jimmy's not there, and he's got to put up with this kid he doesn't know, and But we started out, and I got a copy of the audio. I wish that I should have asked for the video, but
Wow.
I still have the audio thing, and I listened to him when I got home, and I said, you can hear me go off sometimes, but really, more or less, I got in the pocket with him, So some time passed, and he never forgot that. I saw him once in between in Chicago, so when I was working with Sarah Vaughan. I stopped by to see him at another club, and he was very friendly and nice. Next thing I know is called me on the phone, join the group. So I was with him for 2.5 years solid.
Yeah.
I kept track of all my gigs. I played 455 gigs with him.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
through the years, I did a tour of Europe again. I'd fill in, and then the last real gig that I had with him was at the Blue Note for a week with Mike Brecker. And a record came out called The Truth. And so that was the last. We played 6 nights there.
Wow.
And the very last time I played with him was the Saturday after 9/11. There was in New York, there was a drum clinic at the big drum shop in Manhattan. And I went by, I brought my bass, and we played, I think, 3 tunes together, just duo, bass and drums. That was the last time I played with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
People must have been needing that at that moment.
It was a hell of a feeling to be in New York, just walking down the street, people would look at you, that normally doesn't happen in New York, but it was just, everybody wanted to connect somehow.
Yeah.
It was such a shock,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I came because I was living in out west, and when I was driving in, come in, and in New Jersey still, and you go up this rise kind of like this, and that's the first look that you get. You see the skyline of New York, and I could see the smoke coming up, Phew. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it was.
I had only a little bit of touch of that. I was in, let's see if I can bring up the name of the country. Let's see. Well, anyway, it's funny how you know what you're not going to remember in the moment. But anyway, I was over the pond, and it was like probably 25, let's see, had to be 25 years ago at least, and there was a war going on. But of course, I took a gig in the middle of the war, and so you could hear the bombs. They were about 500 miles away, but you could hear the bombs, you could see smoke, and but going to I'd have to say being in New York and seeing that must have been, just surreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, really crazy. Huh. Well, I don't want to ask the typical question, how was it playing with Elvin? But what I would like to know is, I'd like to know, did you feel like there were certain things that you walked away with that had, like, of course, probably every gig you had realizations or great times or inspiration, but were there a few things that you walked away with going, Elvin really gave me this or taught me this?
Oh, well, I've said that many times, and the way I've described it is that, I played with some great musicians that are very powerful, and he was one where I could be just pulling those strings and just giving everything that I could, and my energy, to me, my concept of my own energy was like, if I could pick up a refrigerator, a full-size refrigerator, and throw it at him, he would just go like this, That's what it felt like. I mean, because no matter what I did, man, that power was just right there all the time,
Somebody said, well, I'll ask the question, how was it playing with him?
Yeah.
You could give us an overall feeling.
Yeah.
How was it? How was it playing with Elvin Jones?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I learned a lot about jazz very quickly in Boston at the school because of the interaction of, being such a small school as it was then. Everybody knew everybody, more or less, and the interactions between the students was fabulous, just always talking about a new record. And Blakey's got a new record, man, and everybody listened to it, And really development, and as I was already impressed by listening to Elvin play on records, but when I really got the understanding of the scene, especially with Coltrane, that was when I finally decided to go to New York. I went there with a dream, and I went there with a goal, right?
Yeah.
My goal was to play with Elvin.
Oh.
My dream was to play with Elvin and Miles. So I never thought I'd get to play with Miles, but I wound up playing with him. So, what was it like playing with Jones? A dream come true.
Yeah.
Just the breadth, the width of his beat. He had like miles of space to put your stuff in his thing because he was so encompassing with his feeling.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, I could spend hours just talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Just the ability for some to create that universe, their universe, such a huge universe, and all they have to do is basically kind of open their eyes and be there, and then and boom, the universe is created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's a question: like, even though I know basically, if you're a good player and you show up, there's nothing really that you can do wrong, so to speak. The old Miles thing. Like whatever you play, it's a part of the creation, it's possibilities. But is there, like you were just talking about, putting all your energy into plucking the strings, is there, or are there some things, or a thing, probably more than one, that are more beneficial to use in a situation like that as a player?
Wow, I don't know how to answer that because the music is so wide. I mean, when you're talking about doing a waltz, a ballad, each one has its own situation to deal with.
Yeah.
no, I'll tell you this. This is something that I've mentioned to my students. Very often, bass players will run into a drummer, especially when the tempo goes up, that it speeds. The tempo speeds. And
Yeah.
what I found out because of the very first band that the real first band that I played with when I was in Boston was a Latin dance band. So I learned the clave and I learned all those, the montunos and all these beats and stuff, and I have that really firm within me. And I found out that if I started thinking in two at those high tempos, and especially I could drop from playing quarter notes to half notes, I could lock the drummer right down. Lock him right down. Hold the tempo.
Yeah. 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 See, that's
For the most part.
right. With some luck.
Yeah. There's no 100% here.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the exactly something like I wouldn't know because I'm not really a player. I mean I play a little bit here and there, but yeah, that's yeah, that's something that's really interesting and great to know, and great for me to actually use for teaching too because a lot of times I teach. Well, I'm very rhythmic, conscious, and it can be hard to get grooves into growing singers. They're just so not aware of it. I'm not sure why exactly. Maybe we grew up with different kind of grooves, that maybe we're more connected to what we eventually did. But however, yeah, like I always tell my students listen to the bass player. The bass player is keeping the time, I mean, everybody has good time, but the bass player is the timekeeper. The quarter notes, Jay Clayton, once in a workshop here, because I have people do workshops here, she was having them walk around the room to the quarter note, to the song. That was great. It got into your body, and, then there's the, bossa novas, so that's a different, it's a different emphasis, and so yeah, so the half note, I'm going to think about that and see how I can apply that in my teaching.
Yeah.
Well, now you said well, I see here too. It said you play with Nina Simone, and you said Sarah Vaughan as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. In fact, you're listed on a bunch of Nina stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you had you played with Nina a little bit more than Sarah?
Calendar-wise, yes. Number of gigs, I'd have to count them up. Because Sarah did a lot of week things where Nina would do like weekend concerts,
Oh, I
for the
see.
most part,
Yeah.
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 So they could be this near each other. And I was with Sarah for a full year, and I was with Nina for, I don't know, 2 or so years, and then I do, once in a while, I do a gig with her here and there, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to pick a few singers to play with, those
There's a couple.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nina was cool with me until she got mad at me. And I hadn't been playing with her for a while, but my best friend, Don Elias, I got him the job with her. And then I left after a while, and then he stayed there. He became the musical director. And then Miles called him on the phone. And he had to tell Nina, he says, Miles called, I have to go. And she got so angry, she called me on the phone. And she started cursing me out. She said, it's your fault that he's going with Miles Davis because of the jazz thing you guys do. I said, yeah, okay. Okay, Nina. My fault. It's my fault.
Oh, that's funny. That's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, working with Nina must have been interesting. I'd like to get deeper into knowing about her life,
Hmm.
um, but that must have been an interesting musical experience.
Well, as I said just a little bit ago, I had the opportunity to play with some strong people.
Yeah,
There's nobody stronger than that woman. Miles Davis or Coltrane or anybody. Nobody any stronger than her
yeah,
in terms of like, just authority and just power. And she could run the gamut from, as you were describing, Munoz's music,
yeah.
just from a. We played this concert in the Netherlands one time, and it was a stage that was Concertgebouw was the name of the theater. You're surrounded by people. There are people behind you, and the main thing is out in front of
Oh,
you. And we were playing a ballad where there would be like a big space between each beat, and I swear you could hear a pin drop, man. People it just became. Ah, I remember that feeling. It was just amazing. And then she could turn around and bombastic and just so she had a wide range of stuff. Yeah,
yeah, that must have been really an incredible experience.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was. It was.
yeah. And who's the drummer for the most part? Was it Donna Lass or somebody
Yeah,
else?
I got him the gig. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm. Wow, great. And
Yeah.
and what about Sarah?
Well, what I have to say about Sarah is I got Jimmy Cobb to play with us.
Oh.
Wow, man. What a thrill, man. We had so much. Jan Hammer, the keyboard player, who
Oh,
fabulous,
wow.
fabulous musician. And between the three of us, we had so much fun on things. We were always laughing. And it was just great. Jimmy was just one of the most sweetest people you could ever meet. Yeah.
Wow. What general year was that?
Sarah was 1970, the
Oh,
whole
okay.
year. Hmm.
Yeah. That was still like that was probably a really good year for her singing too. I'm
Yeah,
imagining.
we had a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you travel around the world with her?
We went to South America,
Uh-huh.
around the states. I don't know if we got to Canada, but we did Japan as well. Yeah,
Fun.
yeah. Mhm.
In all your traveling around the world, what's one of your favorite places?
Well, there's something everywhere. I mean, being in Switzerland um, is a wonderful thing to experience because of not only the topography,
Yeah.
but it's so clean there and things are so
Yeah.
organized. It's nice to have that experience, and I enjoy being there. And I love Paris. God, it's like the New York of Europe.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say probably the most exciting place that I've been has been Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and but especially Rio, man. That place is so vibrant, or it was when I was there. Anyway,
You
yeah.
know, I've never really hung out much in Brazil.
Hmm.
I was there a little bit in some travels to Chile, and but of course I have a lot of Brazilian friends, of course. And this summer I'm going to Brazil camp,
Mm. Cool.
which is near San Francisco.
Hmm.
My friends have been telling me for years that I have to go, and I've been
Mm.
like, don't speak a lot of Portuguese. They said, you will.
Mm.
So this year I'm going. I'm really looking forward to it a
Hmm.
lot.
Hmm.
It's going to be great.
Mm. Cool.
Apparently, I mean, you go on their site, you see little videos. Yvonne Lins had been a teacher there, and God, the way he was talking about it was so gorgeous. He just
Hmm.
he couldn't even describe
Hmm.
how what it was, but he just said it's life changing and
Hmm.
incredible. Excuse me,
Hmm.
I have a little allergy. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, Okay, so and I know you're a teacher, and I'm assuming you taught over the years in various ways. Are you at an institution now? Teaching
Um,
institution?
what do you mean by that, institution?
Sorry, that was a bad choice of words.
Well, I started out teaching at the college level by joining um, Lehigh University, which is here in Pennsylvania, where I live. And I started teaching bass, and that morphed into teaching recording engineering. And then I suggested that I could teach a music business course, and that morphed into becoming a music business minor.
Oh,
And I was at Lehigh for 20 years, and the pandemic hit, and being an adjunct, out the door. You know. But somewhere back in 2008, I think, yeah, I got a call from the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music in New York.
huh.
And Jimmy Owens, who had been teaching music business there, he recommended me. And so I started teaching there. And I'm still there, although I've taken last semester and this semester off to take care of some things. So. But I'm still, on the payroll. We have a American Federation of Musicians, Local 802, contract with the school.
Oh,
So adjuncts are underneath a
wow.
union contract, which is a wonderful thing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Wow. That's really interesting.
yeah, yeah. We're just getting ready to negotiate a new contract. So
So does that mean basically they can't just let you go out of the blue kind of thing?
there has to be reasons for it. It's really quite a very comprehensive document. And
That's that's
yeah.
pretty amazing. We could sure
hmm
use something like that over here.
hmm
I
What's
mean,
over here?
over here in LA.
Oh,
I
not a particular any school. You mean
oh yeah, just in general
in
because
general? Yeah. Okay.
I know, but I mean, I've been an adjunct, but um, I didn't suffer so much because I wasn't super depending on it, for my living. But I do know other musicians who have depended on it,
hmm
and they just, you know,
hmm
yeah, we feel like getting rid of you right now. It's like, oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah, thanks.
Well, I guess we shouldn't spend time getting into the weeds on this, details on this, but you have to achieve a certain level before you're really locked in. You can't go in there and teach one semester and you've got pension and health care. No, you have to be there for a year or two. Um, I forget the exact detail. You have to be there for a little bit. And then
Yeah,
finally, when you reach that level, I think it's 2 years, then you've got pension and you've got health insurance. That's a
I
fabulous thing.
I think that's right. I
It
really
is right.
do.
It should be.
It's not, God, I will say that. So I was teaching at Musicians Institute for several years, way back. Um, and that's when the owner, whose name I can't remember, the guitar player, he sold it to a Japanese man who owned a guitar manufacturing company in Japan and possibly a school too. I guess it was a school as well. Anyway, this guy, this guy came in. This was his first meeting, if you can imagine this. His first meeting with the teachers in a big room, um, with this female Japanese interpreter, and he was like the typical Japanese businessman. I mean, I love Japan. Don't get me wrong; it's like my second home. But there's certain communities that I'm a little less enamored with, which is usually the businessman kind of
hmm
community,
hmm
and and he was kind of ranting and raving, and then this this poor interpreter would be interpreting what he was saying, and he was saying stuff like, uh, you guys think you're the shit, you're crap, and I can get students for to teach exactly what you're teaching for less. And this was his first introduction to the teachers. So as you can imagine, some of the teachers left at that point.
Sure.
Some
That's what he
stayed.
wanted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really.
Yeah.
So speaking of business, what so how did you enter into the music business kind of category, I guess?
When Elvin called me in January of 1971 to join his group, I think we played a couple of gigs or something, and then he said we're going to record. And you got any tunes? Bring them along. Maybe we'll record them. Well, I brought a couple of tunes along, and we recorded both of them on that first record that I made with him. And when I went home, I already knew about protecting songs by copywriting. But I didn't know anything after that because I had never really made a recording of my song for any, I didn't they didn't play my songs with Sarah or Nina or Willie Bobo or Woody Herman and all these bands that I had played with before. Elvin was the first one. And my good friend, who I met the first night that I moved into New York and then began playing a lot with him, was Chick Corea. And Chick was in front of me in terms of his development, certainly musically and business wise. So I figured, let me call him up and see. Chick, what's up? I just recorded with Elvin. I said, two tunes. When am I supposed to? He said, you got to get him copyright. I said, oh yeah, I'm cool with that. I know that. He said, well then you got to get a music publisher. And I said, what's that? I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so he said, call this guy. He gave me the number of Bill Krasilovsky, William M. Bill Krasilovsky, who wrote what many people consider the Bible of the music industry. It's called This Business of Music, published by Billboard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's it's like maybe for budding lawyers to read. It's in there. I called the guy on the phone, and I don't know why. This has happened a few times in my life, but he took me right under his wing, and I spent hours and hours in his office listening to him speak with clients on the phone, reviewing contracts. I learned so much stuff
Wow.
through that guy. Funny story. I love this one. I'd like to tell this one. We're sitting in the office one day. A phone call comes in, and the receptionist is around the corner, and she shouts out to Bill. She says, Bill, it's Chuck Berry on the phone. Chuck Berry was one of his clients, right? So he picks up the phone and he goes, hello. And he's listening for a while. And then he says, I don't do that, and slammed the phone down. And I'm looking at him like with a question mark in my face. And he says, can you believe this guy? These artists, he said, I'm his lawyer. He just called me and asked me to call his phone company to have a phone installed in his bedroom.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how I got started, and then jump ahead to where it blew up for me, business-wise, when I was with Elvin, and Liebman was in the band, and we played a night, I think it was in Toronto or Chicago, somewhere. And the next day in the hotel lobby, you're hanging around till the gig at night. And I saw him in the lobby, and I said, hey, man, what's up? How you doing? And he says, oh, man, I'm so pissed. I said, what? He says, well, I made this record, and I shopped it to all the major labels, and nobody wants it. And I said, oh, wow, that's curious. I'd love to hear it. They said, you got it? Yeah, there's a cassette up in my office. So I went upstairs. I put on the cassette, and he put on the cassette, and I listened to it, and I said, wow, this is really nice music. And I don't know, Cathy, what came over me. But this is exactly what happened. I said, I'll put it out. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, I'll start a record company, and I'll put it out. And that's what happened. And I'm still at it. I'm just in the process of finishing up my 56th record.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Now
no,
you're
it's a small potatoes, in terms of what other guys have done. But I'm basically a one-man show. I pretty much do everything. So
that just makes me tired. Just figuring that.
yeah, I sleep a lot just to get the energy back.
Yeah, and I think the older I get, I know people think I'm busy and I'm creative, and I am, but I have there's a certain bandwidth that I have, and the technology or learning certain things that probably involve like what you're talking about, especially in the business stuff. I think I have a limit on that, and it's I mean, I know I could do it, but that's not where my interests lie, so because you really have to put a time in. Like I just took a semester of piano, jazz piano, where I was learning, but I know I have to practice. I have to practice a lot, that's how you get better. And as time was going on, I was beginning to get a little bit uptight because I had this project coming up. I was really trying to do my work on the project, but I knew my piano needed attention. And finally, I dropped the class, unfortunately. But I say unfortunately, but I really got a lot out of it, and I'll probably take it again.
Yeah.
I'll just keep taking it and dropping it. I'll get better at the beginning, right? Much better at the beginning part.
Yeah.
But it
Well,
takes.
I
Oh
hear
gosh,
that.
wow.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. We all have limits. I certainly have them. One of the ones that I can describe is that when I first bought my first computer in a grocery store, it was a little Timex computer, right? And I wanted to understand how did this thing work, and somebody told me, well, it's computer programming, and I said, oh yeah, what's that? Well, it's this thing called BASIC, is the program language. So I got into it, and I started to, and I saw what I had to do to create the letter A, so forth. And when I saw what that was, I said, I probably could be really good because I'm detail oriented, or try to be. And I said, but man, I know what's going to happen. That's it. I'm going to have my head buried in that computer for the rest of my life, and I don't want that. So that was my limit. But starting a record company, there were LPs those days, right?
Yeah,
This is before the cassettes, right?
yeah.
And I wanted to really understand, so I learned the whole process, and I went around to the people that were doing the stuff that needed to be done, like the lacquer, cutting the lacquer. Well, even before that, as a recording studio work, multi-track, working with tape, taking that tape, mixing it down to a stereo, taking it to the lacquer guy, cuts the lacquer, who sends it off to the metal house. A three-step process, and then what about the graphics? Four-color processing, and on and on and on. And I got way inside of that stuff, So
Wow, that's impressive.
yeah,
What is your label called?
PM, and people think it's for Perla music, but it's not. It's for jazz happens at night. PM.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Night. Yeah. What kind of artists do you have, or can we go look at your site?
Yeah. It's pmrecords.com.
All right. I'm going to share it with everybody just because we're talking about it. It's kind of in. pmrecords.com. pmrecords.com. Okay. Oh yeah, I've gone here before when I
And
first.
up top, in the middle, it says PM Store. It's a menu item in the middle. Yeah. And then if you can make it bigger, then you can scroll down, and those are all the records.
Yeah. Wow.
And I
And
have,
so this is still going on. You're still releasing stuff.
yeah, it released, what was it? That got wild last year. I think 8 I released last
That's a
year.
lot. 8.
Yeah. It never really, it was just really a bunch of them that have been building up that I never finished, and finally got a lot of them done. But I have a Nina Simone record, and I have a a number of Elvin records.
Um, oh, David Pilch, I see here. I like him.
Ooh,
He's a really interesting player, isn't he?
he's fabulous. And his brother, Rob, on guitar, fabulous.
I don't know his brother.
Yeah, he lives in Toronto.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, really interesting. He's got an interesting point of view. He's really cool. So, do you also do you do the distribution stuff and
What distribution? Is there distribution?
I don't know. I keep thinking there is, but is
Well,
there
not physical, not physical. You know, I quit physical quite a while ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I mean, I don't manufacture anymore in in a pressing plant. I just make CDR. Somebody wants to buy one, I make the CD for them. I print the graphics for the art and all that stuff, the paper,
Yeah.
and put all the components together and put it in an envelope and send it.
And and do you have lines into the radio stations if there are any anymore? And
The advertising, I've tried it here and there, and years ago it would work, but these days I don't bother with them because I go spend several $100s on an advertisement or somewhere, What do? I sell 3 or 4 records. Did I make my money back? Hell no.
what about having them play the record?
Yeah, I have just basically don't want to spend my time doing that. I used to do that full time. Just always calling radio stations, sending out the LPs, calling on the phone. Did you get it? Collecting their playlists and
Yes.
doing all that kind of stuff. But I just don't want to do that stuff anymore, and I just don't think it. Sure, it's going to do something, but is it really going to pay me back for what it cost me? I've not seen that, not seen that.
I can really understand that. I mean, right now I'm with Origin Records, who does the stuff that I just got kind of tired of doing, for myself, which I did for a lot of my CDs, my recordings. I do like getting I do like getting reviews because those you end up with quotes that you can use in your PR.
Yeah,
forever.
that's good.
Yeah, yeah. So I like that. Yeah. But I have a friend here, Taylor Hatch, who's a guitarist, a very bright young man. He would like to know what you think music business in general is lacking, and what would you change if you had a choice?
Quit the business.
There you go, Taylor.
There's no way I can, I'm not even going to attempt to answer that question because it's way beyond the scope of what I think about. But I tell you what I do wish would come back is the having the opportunity to play with the same people week after week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's gone, But that was when you're playing with the same people, you're playing the same material, and you're doing it 6 nights, 2 sets, maybe 3 sets a night. What comes together musically really is. And on the other hand, though, human beings are amazing creatures. They're adaptable, and what I've been noticing is that even though musicians don't have that opportunity anymore, which I still think is something good for the development, it's amazing how young players that I hear are just, they lock things together and they sound like, so what do I attribute that to? How about this?
All right. Well,
When I came up,
yes.
how could I learn what was going on in the scene? By listening to records, maybe the radio, listening to records, and especially trying to see the musicians that I was influenced by or was crazy about or wanted to know more about, seeing them play live.
Yeah.
Now you can see everybody playing everything, and if you want to hear it, you just back up the YouTube a little bit and look at it again. So I think that has given the young players the ability to advance because they're exposed at a very young age, and now you've got so many young players who are just monsters already, and they're not even teenagers. It's amazing, amazing.
It's so true, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, that's why I love these conversations with people because you get to see um, the same piece of information, but through different eyes and opinions.
Hmm.
And that's another reason for years, like 16 years, I had. I ended a little bit before the pandemic, but I used to create workshops here, which I still do occasionally. But I probably had at one time, I had uh, 10 workshops a month.
Wow.
And some of them would be guest artists coming in, and I would be doing some. But anyway, it was really fascinating to me to watch uh, the same issues come up, but described the fixes described in different ways, because it was obviously because of the individual artist's point of view, their experience. You know, some
Sure.
of them had gone through dramatic things and then had decided in a life moment how their perspective was, and that affected all their choices along the way, including how this student sang the song. So I always found that pretty interesting. And so talking about this stuff, I think, the facts are the facts. What's happening in the world is happening. How do you look at that? How do you, like you said, quit the business? Yeah, some people, that's their answer, and that's what they're going to do, and that's fine, because that's what they need to do.
Yeah, I mean, what I said early on, I went to New York with a goal and a dream, and if you have this dream and you really want that, then the only answer is you just keep going for it until you get it, or you finally say,
Okay.
"Hell with it." Yeah.
Right. Taylor, I just want to say, we've been talking before you got here, and so Gene already had mentioned a particular great realization that he had. But I know your question's a little different than that. Taylor has great questions. He said, what was one moment you remember a professional telling you that changed your life and how you viewed music?
Well, there were quite a few that came along, but there's one that I love to tell this story. So I had the wonderful fortune of when I joined Elvin, not long after I was with him, I got a phone call from his brother, Thad, and said that Richard Davis was leaving the big band and would I come down and play.
Oh.
So I did, and I did that for, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, or maybe even longer, the Monday nights at the Village Vanguard, when I was available, because I was working with Elvin, and sometimes we'd be out of town. But whenever I was in town, I was the bass player. We also did some small group gigs with Roland Hanna on piano and Pepper Adams on baritone, and Mel, of course, and Thad and myself. And we were playing this club in New Jersey called Gulliver's. And it was a 6-night-a-week gig, right? We played 2 sets a night, maybe 3 on the weekend, I don't remember. And Thad didn't say anything. All he'd do is pick up his cornet and he'd start playing a melody of a song. Well, we knew the tunes, so boom, we'd go ahead. So there must have been about 6 or 7 tunes that he played every night of that week. So the second night I'm there, he starts to play the melody, and I'm not really paying attention, but I remembered what we did the night before. So when it came time for me to hit my first bass note, I hit the root and it was wrong. It was wrong because he changed the key. And he changed the key on those 6 or 7 tunes every night of the week. So talk about a learning experience. You know what? It wasn't anymore the eyes or the brain. It was this. So to this day, I was just talking with one of the groups, the leader of one of the groups, and he said, "You know these tunes and so forth for the gig we're going to do on Sunday at the Deer Head."
Oh, cool.
He tells the titles. I know all the tunes except one. I know it, but I said, maybe go over. It says, "But Dan," I said, "as we've been doing, just tell me what the first chord is, okay? After that, I got it." So that was really a big learning experience for me, that one. And there were a whole bunch of other ones too, of course, here and
That's
there.
so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a good answer, huh, Taylor? Yes, the Thad Jones, yes. I remember one time in LA, I was very young. I was in my 20s. Well, I moved here when I was 21. And so, I was in my early 20s. And I played with, here I go. Shoot. Let's see. They're brothers, jazz brothers here in LA, very famous. Oh my God, my brain today really needed a jump start. I'm going to have to think about that. But anyway, they were kind of like the Jones family, and I play, and they were there was a few of them together, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I had never experienced that before. I mean, I grew up singing jazz with my dad was a jazz player, and it was definitely part of me and inside of me, and I always worked, but I had never experienced. It was that universe that you were talking about, when Elvin would start, that huge. It was huge, and it was quality, and there was a certain point of view that the brothers shared that was like a certain pathway to a planet or something. I was like, I'll never forget that, even though I forget their names right now, but I will never forget that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a gorgeous, but you had those experiences a lot in your lifetime. My God, you played with so many amazing people and on such unusual things. And like you said, that particular gig that you were just talking about, you had a few weeks, right? And six nights a week.
6 nights, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's great too. It's funny. I remember. I'm curious what you think of. Well, you kind of said it already, but Benny Maupin lives out here, and for a while he was playing a lot, and I would go see him, and I'm a big Benny Maupin fan, and I love his compositions. Kind of remind me a little bit of Scofield, like a strong head. Scofield, of course, goes into these real open bridges, but the A sections are really like got a hook. But Benny has these songs that are very distinct, groovy, melodic, and I even recorded one, which I have to send it to you. It's called "Message to Prez," and my friend Bevan Manson, who's a really great arranger and pianist, arranged. I had a small chamber orchestra record that we did, and he took that song and made it almost into 3 movements. It was really great, and we had Benny play on it. But when I would go see Benny, I was totally in love with that particular song, and he was playing the same songs on every gig. And as a matter of fact, Michael Steffens played with him a lot, but that. At that time too, probably I was thinking, oh, I can't repeat any songs. I have to play different songs every gig. and that struck me so that I understood it's just a vehicle for the moment. You know, the moment is what's the magical part. The vehicle is important, but it's the moment and what's happening in the moment. Um, do you find that like when you do your own gigs, do you do the same songs?
Well, I'm a member of about 6 or 8 different groups at the moment.
Yeah.
A couple of them are mine, but yeah, a lot of the songs are repeated. But it's not like we were playing 6 nights a week. You know, I play with
Yeah.
one night here, and 2 months later I might play with them again, and so yeah, sure the songs are repeated, but that doesn't matter because. The symphony orchestras play the same song. It's it's in the interpretation of those songs. Uh, we're creative people, or at least we say we are, right? Aren't we
Yeah.
supposed to be creative? So what? Well, I'm going to play the same song again. I'll play it a little different this time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
maybe a
learning.
lot different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was learning a Scarlatti piece for a record that I did, and I watched Horowitz play a solo on the piece, and it was so beautiful. It was kind of like a jazz player playing. He wasn't, I knew the melody, I had it all written out, and it was not. He changed a little bit, and of course it was his phrasing and his touch and everything. It was really, really beautiful to see a
Yeah.
beautiful player like that playing
Oh,
like that.
stupendous.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have what Taylor said. We just had John Riley at UNT. You've likely had a long connection with him because of his history with the Vanguard Orchestra.
Oh, this is interesting. This is really interesting because this has to be somewhere around 1980, and uh, the original Stone Alliance group with Steve Grossman and Don Elias and myself broke up in '77, and Grossman stayed in Europe. He was living in Europe, but he came back to the States, and somebody called me to do this gig, and I didn't know who was on it, so I show up at the gig, and there's Grossman. He's on the gig with me. So that's the first time I saw him since the group broke up, and it broke up under very awful circumstances. But
Mm.
anyway, I don't carry grudges for the most part.
But don't fuck with me.
And so it's nice to see Steve, and we talked a little bit, and John Riley, who I had never met, was the drummer on that thing. So I played with him 1980, right? Just 2 months ago, I hired him to play a local restaurant gig, and that's the first time I played with him since 1980.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. See that, Taylor?
I never heard him with the Vanguard Orchestra. I think he said he's with them 35 years or something. And when we finished the first set, I leaned over to him and I said, "I can really hear the big band." Because he's right there, He's driving the train, yeah. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have my friend Dan has posted a connection. I don't know if you want to see this or you would rather go back to your list, but there's a YouTube with Steve Grossman, Dave Lieberman, and Alvin playing Soul Train.
It's the only video that I'm aware of. It was a concert we did at a TV station in Paris, 1972.
Can we
I
watch a
guess.
little?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Whatever you like.
Yeah, just a little bit, but I mean, Gene shared with me some tracks, that I could share as well. I had to watch the whole ending. That's really that was amazing. Wow.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not Soul Train by Coltrane. Yeah, my name is Perlia.
I saw that.
Yeah, yeah, that's it's called A Bright Peace by Liebman. That is,
Oh,
and
what a great song.
the probably the most famous record that Elvin made as a leader was a double album put out on Blue Note called Live at the Lighthouse out there
Oh,
in Hermosa Beach.
yeah, yeah.
And that was September 9th of 1972, so this is 50 years later this year. So I put a group together. We've been doing this a little bit, but this group, we've doing the Detroit Jazz Festival in September,
Oh,
and we've got a gig in New York at a club the end of June, the last day of June. And it's with Nussbaum, Adam Nussbaum on
oh,
drums, and Liebman. So Liebman and I are originally from the original group, and we have Jerry Bergonzi joining us.
oh,
So that
cool.
should be interesting. You know,
Yeah. Where's that? Which club?
it's called New Blue. It's
New
down in
Blue.
Alphabet City, down the Lower East Side of Manhattan.
Cool. So
Yeah.
those of you listening should buy a ticket. I would. I was just, I usually try and like listen to a video for about 5 minutes, but sometimes I just can't leave. I couldn't leave during that. That was like 11 minutes long, but I just couldn't leave. It's
Okay.
because it's too captivating.
Mm.
It catches you, and then you're inside the universe, and then it's like, what are you going to do? Get up and walk out? No. You were quite young there, huh?
Yeah, and skinny.
Yeah, that's funny, man.
Uh,
Um, Michael Welch also loved On the Mountain, which was a lot different with Gene
Whew,
and
boy,
Elvin and the
that's
Electric Jan Hammer.
That Elvin used to talk about those were his two best records, Live at the Lighthouse and On the Mountain, that trio thing with Jan Hammer. And
Oh,
I know I struck gold on that one because um, the week that it came out, I got a phone call from Stanley Clark, who had heard the record, and he said, "Man, man, man!" And he was all excited about that. So I said, "Oh, I guess it's a good record." And that was the one, talk about business. That was the one that I sold 10,000 copies of that, and which was for me like phenomenal.
definitely.
So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really significant.
Now, now 100 is a dream.
I know.
It's crazy, crazy.
My husband and I always joke about how many CDs I have in the garage.
Oh yeah, you want to see
And
my basement?
but the thing is, I would throw them out, except, before the pandemic, I went to Japan every year, at least twice, or sometimes 3 times for a many years. And in Japan, people still buy CDs.
Oh sure,
So I
sure,
would,
yeah.
I mean, they do hear a little bit,
Well,
but
I have a shelf full of not all my whole catalog because I stopped the last. I'm working on number 56 now. I made LPs up to 22, and some of those I have probably about a dozen that I still have LPs, and I'm selling them. I don't know, not every day, but
yeah.
maybe one every 2 weeks, maybe a couple of times in 1 week. That's good. But here's a tip, Kathy. What I've been doing it feels gratifying to me. Somebody's throwing a party or there's a meeting, and I've got like 1,700 CDs of this of this record, and I just take like, I don't know, 20 or 30 with me, and I give them away as a gift.
Absolutely.
And it's nice, you know.
It is nice. Actually, a few years back, I saw this friend of mine who's a really great player, John DeVersa.
Yeah.
And he was doing a gig at this beautiful club we used to have here called the Blue Whale. It was a beautiful little trio. Oh, it was really beautiful. You would have liked that trio. It was just beautiful music. And he had somebody going around to each person in the club giving them a CD. And then up at the front he had, or at the front of the stage, he had like a tip jar almost thing. And he got on the mic and he said, we really want you to have the music. So we're giving you this music. If you feel like putting some money in the jar, go ahead. If not, that's fine. And I've done that several times. And I get money, and I also get rid of some CDs. And I feel like more people have the music, which of course is kind of the whole thing, right? We want
Absolutely.
we want the music in the hands of the people. That's why we're
Yeah.
doing it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gene, when I get to your website, I'm buying all of your LPs plus some CDs.
I'll be looking for the PayPal.
He will too. His name is Roland Askeruns.
Okay.
He is a guitar player. Sometimes I call him a closet guitar player. He had been a guitar player, then he kind of stopped. Did something else for a living, but he still has like. I'm sorry, Roland. I always forget, but something like 15 guitars. So
Okay.
he really is still a guitar player. But yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing like music. I'm going to give you my most recent axiom.
Okay.
The greatest thing that a human being can do is play music. And the greatest music a human being can play is jazz.
All right. I'm going to write that down, man.
You have it recorded, right?
Well, my dream, I just recently finished a little philosophy book that took me 15 years to get together. But then the next project was to listen to each one of these hangs and to take down my aha moments and put them into a book
Oh,
or two.
yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. I think I actually might do that on a Patreon thing, because I've had a Patreon account waiting to be launched, but I just, for what,
What is that? What is that?
Patreon,
What is it?
it's a platform that you set up where people can buy subscriptions for however much money, it could be $1 a month, $5 a month, $10, whatever. And then you set it up so that they, on each level, they get a certain thing for that level,
How do
And
you spell it?
Patreon, like
Okay.
Patreon.
Okay.
I just call it Patreon, but
Okay.
yeah, it's interesting, but I haven't really put all the pieces inside my heart to like, how much time can I give? What would people want to hear? What would people want to, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I bet you probably would dig doing it, but I was thinking of actually, like, to kind of help me, and I think it would be interesting for people to actually have a certain time for the Patreon members to sit with me while I'm listening to, a session and writing down ideas and maybe even getting some suggestions or whatever. So I thought, yeah, now that would be something of value that I could offer, I think. I think,
Cool.
people who would never do that for whatever reason, it's an easy way for them to kind of ride along on that,
Okay.
Let's see, Michael Welsh also said, what did he say? He also, Merry-Go-Round record, also fantastic with Joe Farrell. As a production, a really different sound. The tune Gingerbread Boy, just everything fantastic, plus not just Gene's playing, but he's the producer. He captured Elvin's sound each time. That's very nice.
Do
you
I
know
remember
Michael?
this?
Huh? What did
Do
you
I
say?
remember this?
The gingerbread boy?
I don't
You don't
know.
remember?
No.
See, there you go, Michael. But anyway, it's nice that you that
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
yeah. Now you're going to go back and listen, aren't you?
Oh, I don't know. You know the Lighthouse record? I have never listened to the whole thing ever.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know about you, but once you really put your heart and soul into something and you're creating and it's very intense, and then it's done, and then on to the
What's
next thing.
what's next?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. One of my first records was a beautiful record with this pianist that I traveled a lot with in Japan, Phil Strange, and Peter Erskine and Mark Johnson. And
Woohoo!
we recorded at Chick's studio here with Bernie Kirsch as the engineer. So, you can imagine it was a pretty beautiful project. And for a year, I was very young, and for a year afterwards, I was depressed. And I thought, finally, an artist friend of mine said something, which I don't remember. I wish I did. It was one sentence, he said. And it was something that made me realize, like, oh, I I never moved on from that project. It was like I was depressed because it wasn't continually happening.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, now I can put that aside and move on to the next project. That's an interesting thing that we have to do, but I think jazz teaches you that, don't you think? To move
Well,
on.
to me, it's circling back to what playing the same songs night after night. That's what you know. We're creative, so you play the same song. It's just a new version, and it's up to the player to want to explore it further. Well, let's see. I played a third over here on this. So tomorrow night I'm going to play a fifth. However, whatever it is,
Yeah.
there's. I mean, for me, it's dependent on the musical situation I'm in. If it's high quality, top end, top gun players, then I'm really just focused on fitting in and making my part of it work with the rest of what's going on. But in other situations, more commercial things, playing gig in a restaurant where you can't open up because you can't get too loud, or whatever it is, uh, um, uh, it's I find myself practicing. So, for instance, I'll come around to a chorus, and I'll say, you know what? I'm not going to play a root ever on beat one. I'm not going to play a root. That's it. I'll play a third. I'll play a fifth. I'll play a second. Whatever it is, and I force myself into that. And to me, that's a practice thing. And playing the bass also, instead of playing like a line, moving around like this, I'll move up and down across the strings to play the same thing, and I may repeat something that I'm playing, and I'll play it one right after the next in two different places in the bass. I'm practicing, but that gives me more understanding of the instrument. So when I do get in a situation with the top dogs, I'm a better player, and that's the whole idea. I want to be better every time I play.
Yeah.
Or at least attempt to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed actually on that list that you had played with maybe, can I say, more commercial people, or I'll show you the list, just so this is, you're familiar with this, the All Music.
I guess I've seen it somewhere. I didn't know I had one.
Yeah, somebody built it up for you. So it starts from the later years and then goes down, but you can see, okay, I don't know if this is true. This is one of those. Were you a studio assistant for Daryl Hall and John Oates?
Oh, yeah. I played on one of the... Oh, you want to hear the funny story?
Yeah.
Okay. When I got into the record business, I decided that I really needed to understand what happened in the studio. So I had like a little 2-track stereo reel-to-reel machine, a real good one, and I would record all my jam sessions, do all this stuff. But that's all I did. I knew a couple of microphones and a reel-to-reel recorder. That's what I knew about recording.
Yeah.
But when I started the label, I said, man, I really have to understand what's going on in the studio. And so I took this class at this school that's since has gone under. It's called the Institute of Audio Research in New York City. And it was in a building that was up several floors. And on the first floor was a very famous restaurant that had jazz every night of the week. And most musicians in New York, a lot of them played there. I played there a ton of times with all kinds of players, duos, guitar or keyboard. It's called Bradley's.
Okay.
Yeah, and so anyway, the very first night of the class that I had, I went downstairs and, I knew the bartender and I went in to have a drink and it was a packed night. And I'm standing there near the bar having a drink and some fellow sitting next to me, somehow we started talking and we got to the point where I introduced myself to him and he says, you're Gene Perla, you're that jazz bass player. And I said, yeah. I said, what's going on with you? And I said, well, I just came downstairs from taking this recording course. I just had the first class. He says, you want to work in the studio? And I said, hell yeah, I want to learn it. So he was partners with Todd Rundgren. And that was called Secret Sound Studio. And I worked in that place for well over a year, making no money until I finally got my chops together enough to be an engineer. Then I started to make a little money. But I would be there 5-6 days a week, many hours every day. And we ripped the whole studio apart, rewired it and everything.
Wow.
So I learned a lot. But I didn't interact with Todd until I was there for a while. And then I started to assist him a little bit. And we're doing this Hall & Oates project. And he treated me, not disrespectfully, but I could really sense like, I'm way in the background. I'm just an assistant. And I figured that out. He didn't know me from Adam. He didn't know that I was a musician, what I had already achieved, musically.
Yeah.
And so I'm there, I'm assisting him and just being real quiet and taking care of business like an assistant is supposed to. And now there's a conversation. And Todd says to Hall & Oates, he says, this track would sound good with an upright bass. And boom, that was my opening, So I said, I play one of those. And he looked at me with this like, oh yeah? That kind of thing. And I said, yeah, I know how to play it. He says, all right, well, bring it tomorrow. So here comes the funny part. So I come in. I pull the bass out of the case. I'm in the studio. He's in the control room, sitting down. I can see him through the glass, right?
Yeah.
And so I started to play the bass a little bit, and he jumps out of his chair and came running into the studio, and he says, man, you really can play that thing. And after that, we were buddies. So, the music, man, just, yeah.
That's really wild.
Yeah, that was wild, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Good cat, Todd. They called him the Wizard, and he was, man. He was amazing electronics. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Ed Bickert. Huh.
Cool. One of the most fabulous guitarists of all time.
Yeah, really.
Fabulous.
Incredible. I'm a big guitar person, and really loved a lot of the great guitar players. And so Ed Bickert was definitely kind of in with all those guys,
Fabulous person also. Sweet, sweet man.
Yeah. He's not still around, is he?
No, I miss him. I'd call him on his birthday.
Oh.
Living in Toronto.
Yeah. So Bug Alley, what is that? Bug
Woo! Boy, here's another. You win some, you lose some. So
Yeah.
I went to Canada because I had a girlfriend from Toronto. So I started hanging out there in Toronto and started meeting the musicians there. Don Thompson and Bernie Sinensky, the piano player, and Pat LaBarbera, expatriate, he was there. One thing led to another. I said, nobody's paying attention to these guys. And so in 1 year, I recorded Bernie Sinensky Trio, Doug Riley Quartet, Don Thompson Trio, Paddle Barber Quartet, and Ed Bickert Trio.
Oh, wow.
All 5 records, and then I took one song from each one, put it on a compilation LP, and used that as promotion. And that thing won Juno Best Record of the Year.
Wow.
Which was wonderful. So in the meantime, I'm hearing from other musicians that there's this quintet in Montreal that play their own instruments and sing, and they were really something very nice. So I made my way to Montreal. I went and heard the band, and I fell in love with them, and I offered them a record deal. I went and lived in Montreal for, I don't know, a month and a half. We were in the studio many days a week, and we finally finished the record, and I shipped the record to the first person I'm thinking of is Jimmy Lyons. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, ran the Monterey Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
He heard the record and hired him right on the spot. This band could have really been right coming up to Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, because they had this rawness to them, you know? And
Wow.
and the record comes out, and the lead singer, which the band had to have her because she had such a fabulous voice, she quit. So it was a missed opportunity, you know.
Oh.
It got close.
It's one of those things.
Bug Alley, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Hellman's Angels.
Oh boy, that's a funny one. Daphne Hellman played jazz harp, and not very well. But she was a sweet gal, and you know, I played with her at the top of the gate in New York, and we did tours of Florida. And she was a sweet woman, but she had everything memorized. There was really no improvisation. She made up an improvisation and played exactly the same solos every time.
Yeah.
So if she got lost or something like that, good luck.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. I know. You know, it's what I find interesting is that you know, there's a lot of singers here who I would say are in between beginners and semi-pros, you know, and there's a good community, a lot of support, and what happens is there's a really nice place to play that they usually, at least this one place where they go every week and kind of develop their thing, you know, and what I've seen is that they will hire a really good arranger, they will arrange a show. They'll learn the show really well. You know, they'll perform the show and it's really good. And then they don't know what to do after that, you know, because it was this piece of the puzzle that was all set up that they went and did, and that's it, you know. Mm-hmm. It's really a different, it's a different opportunity, not like, you know, in the old days when we had to play everything for a living, you know, we were working 10 gigs a week for doing everything, right? Mm-hmm. Making mistakes and learning what we liked and didn't like, and somebody would scowl at you and you went, oh, okay, I shouldn't do that again, you know, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I had this gig with a fantastic stride player who was pretty well known. It was just like a party, you know, like a wedding party or something. And the first set I was trying so hard to match him. And I'm not a stride singer, you know. And
what's a stride singer?
I don't know, but I was trying really hard to match him. Then on the break, I was so kind of disgusted, you know, and I just thought to myself, you know, fuck it. I'm just going to sing how I sing. Magic happened on the second set, and that was a huge lesson for me. It was like, oh, you just do what you do, the best you do it. And
so I have a story that can mirror that.
Yeah.
I have come into the good fortune of moving to a town that now has been inhabited by. Around the corner from me is Adam Nussbaum, and around the next corner from me is Jeff Tane Watts.
Oh.
And up the street is Bill Goodwin.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
Right.
I'm surrounded by these and John Riley is only about an hour away, and yeah, it's a wonderful thing. So now Tane moves to town, and we wind up starting to play together here and there. And I played with him once, and he's a very complicated drummer,
Yeah.
playing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find my way, and just never felt like I was syncing with him. And then we played somewhere else, and the same feeling again I had. I was trying, they weren't gigs. The first one was a gig, but the second one was he sat in somewhere with me. Then there was the third time we played, and we started playing, and I felt the same thing again. And I said to myself, fuck this. I'm just going to go ahead, man. And so as instant I went ahead, it
Everything
came together.
clicked.
He was
Yeah.
waiting on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I once saw him and Kenny Kirkland
Woo.
and this great bass player Dave Carpenter who lived here. He died, but he was really a good bass player. It was at Catalina's, the old Catalina's, and I was sitting and listening to them, and for a little while I was like confused. I was like, Jeff was on the front of the beat, Kenny was on the back of the beat, and Dave was right in the middle. When I finally realized that all of them had their own thing, their own spot, and they were playing together, it was an aha moment for me. It was really good. Then I was in kind of riding along in the boat. Before that I was I was like, what the hell is going on? I don't get it.
Oh, Kenny, he was in Stone Alliance for a while
Oh, really?
with Mincer.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
nice quartet. It was good. And we also had a quartet with Kirkland and Kenny Werner, two keyboard players, and they were all playing just electronics. That was so much fun.
Oh my God, I would have wanted to hear that.
Yeah, me too. Wish I'd have recorded something.
Oh my God. See, that's the kind of thing that keeps me awake at night and makes me go out more than one night a week. I want to experience that stuff. Oh my God, that's great. Last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever, in 1 week, Bill Frisell's trio came and John Scofield's quartet was there. So two of my favorite guitar players, and I had to go out, it's not the only two things I go out to listen to, but I had to do it,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I wish people would, it's great to see these things on video, especially if you can turn them up and you have a big screen, but seeing music live.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like it. Sure. Well, it's the ambient sound,
Yeah.
That's really, when the sound fills up the room, to me that's really
Yeah.
what it's
I,
about.
I wanted to ask you one thing, because how I found you again was through that group of people who was doing something about or working on doing something about licensing streaming music. And I wanted to
Yeah,
ask
changing
you,
the royalty rates.
are you still involved in that? How can people get involved in that if there is something
It's
to get
gotten
involved in?
very quiet. I haven't heard them. I guess they're starting up maybe in June or something. I don't know. I haven't received any message from them. I don't know.
I thought that was a really worthwhile thing to get
For
involved
sure.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I just we're getting close to the end here, and
Cool.
wanted to find out, do you want to tell people anything? We mentioned a few of your gigs, and maybe I'll just type them in the chat so that people will know. So Gene, by the way, everybody, Gene lives near the Deerhead Inn, which he's going to be working at, but also I'm going to be working there at the middle of June. And so maybe we'll see each other, because I am staying over a few nights, like 1, 2, 3 nights, I think.
Where?
At the Deerhead.
At the hotel?
Yeah,
Oh, cool. They're giving you a room. That's great.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you pay for it, but it's not a lot.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. Well, Goodwin lives there.
I know. I
Yeah.
interviewed him a long time ago.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I definitely, it's gonna be a really fun hang.
Hmm.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to write down. You mentioned a gig in New York. I'd like to write that down. That's June 30th, right?
Right.
Okay, and that's at.
New Blue. Nublu.
And that's you're playing with Liebman, did you say?
Yeah, Lehman and Berganzi and Nussbaum.
Yeah. So that's one, and then you're playing at the Deerhead, right?
Yeah, with a different band.
And when is that?
Deerhead is this Sunday.
Oh, Deerhead. That's May 8th.
Right.
May 8th. And that's with.
Well, if you want to know what's up with me, you can go to perla.org/schedule.htm.
Okay, I guess that means there's a lot. So go to Perla.
.org
Mm-hmm,
slash
mm-hmm.
schedule dot htm.
Thanks. That's good. I like that. That's good. Okay. And my friend Dan, people can actually go to hear this. He listed Gingerbread Boy,
Okay.
and he also listed Live at the Lighthouse.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you guys can go there and check that out too. Boy, this has been very electrifying, Gene. Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
so much for talking
Yeah.
to me for 2 hours.
Yeah, fun. So I'm going to give you the biggest heartbreak story
Okay.
of my musical life.
Okay.
There's a flute player named Jeremy Steig,
Yes.
and because Jan Hammer was playing keyboards and Don Elias was playing drums and congas and myself. And Jeremy landed a recording deal with Capitol Records, and he decided to use Hendrix's Electric Lady studio in New York to record. So we go there one day, we've got our music together, 3-hour session, we finished the album. 2 days later, Jeremy and I went by the studio to pick up cassettes. That was the cassette days of the rough mixes, so we could listen, right, see what we did. And our engineer was Eddie Kramer, who was Jimi Hendrix's engineer.
Oh.
And so we pick up the cassettes from Eddie, and he said, by the way, yesterday when I was doing the mix here, Jimmy came in and he listened for a while, and he said, who are these guys? And so I told him who you were, and Jimmy said, I'm going to England. He says, and when I come back, I want to play with these guys. And he was looking to put a band together. He was talking with Miles, right?
Wow.
He never came back.
That's
I could have been
definitely.
I could have been a rock and roll star.
That's one of those
Boy.
things you'll never
Oh, my
forget,
God. Boy,
unfortunately.
I have to tell you, with Hammer on those mini Moog and all that stuff, man, and his harmonic knowledge, Elias being able to switch between congas and drums, this would have been one hell of a band.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
but-
I'm gonna think about that the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Sure. It was a lot of fun.
Been really fun. I
Good.
really enjoyed it. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Well, I'm going to see you in June. How's that? Does that work?
That's great.
Okay.
All right. Bye. Bye, everybody.